So sepsis is when your body has a kind of deadly reaction to an infection, normally an infection that hasn't been treated and hasn't healed. So for me, I'd just given birth to my son. I'd actually not been well for a couple of weeks. It was my second son. So I'd been through pregnancy before, which was fine. And then I went through my second pregnancy, and the last couple of weeks I felt very unwell. They sent me for a scan. They thought it was pneumonia because they could see a shadow. So in a nutshell, really, I was treated for pneumonia for 2 weeks. I didn't feel any better. And then after my son was born, I went into septic shock. So this is where you'll kind of have seizures, low blood pressure, very high spike in temperature. So these are all things to look out for. I didn't know it was sepsis. I didn't know what sepsis was. So I went to the hospital. And again, to cut a long story even shorter, I went into intensive care. So I'm not sure what that's called in America.
Yeah, ICU.
ICU, yeah. So something. So into intensive care, which is where they put a sort of tiny scar. You can see they put a wire in through to your heart, through your neck, hooked up to drips, and another wire through my wrist. And it's kind of the step before life support machine.
Wow. So
they finally realized through a scan that it was a kidney abscess that had become septic. So because the kidney abscess hadn't been spotted, my whole system was infected now. Wow. They thought it was pneumonia from a shadow. It was actually a kidney abscess under the lung area. So I was there for 9 days. I couldn't really communicate, couldn't see my newborn baby. So, I'd been hoping to breastfeed. Suddenly my husband had to just go and buy baby bottles and baby milk and try and figure that out on his own. And I couldn't have visitors, of course, in ICU. I guess it's the same. You can't have visitors because it's sterile. Yeah. So I kind of went from being this brand new mom, and it was at 9 days postpartum. So my baby was 9 days old. And I'd been very unwell. I mean, that whole time that I hadn't really engaged. Just suddenly, like, the baby was gone, my home was gone, and I was in a bed with machines. And it was kind of, this critical incident. I mean, I was a very positive person before. I lost my dad when I was 22, and that had already given me this kind of real, like, I guess, taste of mortality. Like my dad dying. I know a lot of people lose parents even younger, but I think whenever you lose a parent, like people say to me, I'm 60, I just lost my parent. Like, don't think you can't grieve. Don't think that's not world shattering. Like any age you lose a parent is shattering. And for me at 22, I just finished university and I was in my first year of teaching. He died, and I remember even then people didn't know how to talk to me about it. So in the staff room, he'd died recently, and people didn't know to say, are you okay? Like, oh, Poppy might cry if I ask how she is. So they kind of just avoided really talking to me for a period of time. And I kind of felt the same thing. So I was treated for sepsis. I had blood transfusions, antibiotics, and I obviously was physically healed. But again, the main thing I noticed is people didn't know how to talk to me. So I was released home after a period of weeks, reintroduced to my baby, who I just remember smelled really foreign and not mine, didn't recognize him. And that was another big thing we don't have time to go into today, but coming home, and I think this is the good thing for me from talking to other people who've had sepsis or been in ICU, you're thrown from being in this very sterile environment where everyone's caring for you and you feel safe now, they're healing you, you're safe, to suddenly you're back home in your house where it's not safe. Particularly sepsis is all about infections. I was suddenly back in a home with babies and toys and noise. Like, was a massive mental health shock for me. I didn't have the doctors checking on me, every 10 minutes, and I was back in the driving seat. It was really scary. And people just didn't know how to talk to me. Suddenly all my energy was back on this baby, trying to build an attachment with the baby. And I knew from my work as a teacher, like, I really need to build this bond now, or like, we're both ruined. Like, I need to try. And I was exhausted, like physically exhausted, mentally exhausted, like very almost like a dream, because they told me to prepare for death when I was in ICU. And I kind of said bye to my husband, and I said, like, look, I just remember saying, look after our boys, and we kind of both cried. And And then I thought that was the end, and then it wasn't the end. Like, now this is 8 years ago. So that haunts me a lot, but equally drives me to talk about death with people, because people didn't know how to talk to me after I came out of hospital. They were just, oh, how's the baby? And it was like, oh yeah, that's safer. Let's talk about the cute baby. Let's not talk about the struggles with the baby. Let's just talk about the cute baby.
Could you sense that they were avoiding it? Like, could you sense that they were kind of dancing around the issue when they talked to you?
And I think, don't we all,
Yeah.
we've all lost someone. How many people go like, wow, like, isn't it horrible when people die? Like, did you see the body? Like, how many times did we ask these questions?
Yeah.
No. But how many times did we just, say, I'm sorry for your loss? Like, that's not really giving the space we need to talk about grief and death. And I think a lot of people were like, oh, like, let's just say, oh yeah, you're out of hospital, you're back, you're fine. But we know that although physical scars and, physical illness can heal quicker, it's that mental recovery that takes longer, and sometimes a lifetime.
Yeah.
So, and I think, it's only, this was 8 years ago. My son's now 8. And he's amazing. He's a miracle. But it's only really the last 12 months that I've started talking about it. And I think it's actually been valuable for me, and hopefully it's been valuable for others to have the space. And I think that's what I love about social media. Well, like, say, obviously connecting with you has been amazing. And things like this, your podcast, like, they give space. And that's what we need to use social media to do, to give space, to connect, and to have these conversations. Because if we just say, how are you? Oh, I'm fine. That's not really addressing the issue. And so, yeah, so since then, it's kind of just been, we all have good days and bad days. And I think for me, I have amazing days where I'm like, yay, like, I didn't die. That's really cool. Like, I got a second chance. And then I just have really rubbish days where I'm like, I just remember it so vividly. And I think our brains are really strange like that. They remember, the fact you told that story so vividly in that warehouse of that horrible moment, which for you as a kid, that's, that's really a pivotal moment where you were on that skateboard and you couldn't skate and you thought, this is it. Like, our brain can remember these bad things so well. And so on my bad days, I remember the bad things really well. Like, part of sepsis is you hallucinate. So I thought the one nurse was trying to kill me. And every time she came to hang up my drip, my IV bag, I thought it was poison. But at this point, I couldn't communicate. And so I just used to try and, like, smile at her like she had come. And none of this might even be real because my brain was pretty messed up. But I remember there was this nurse with short hair, and, like, I'd see her like, oh no, it's her. And she'd be hanging up the drip. And I'd just try and, like, smile and think, if she thinks I'm nice, she might not hang the poison up. Like, that's so crazy. And I've learned since that actually most people in intensive care, in ICU, actually do hallucinate. Like, it's your body's kind of shutting down. So yeah, like, on the worst days, I'm back there, like, imagining this nurse is coming to kill me. And, like, it sounds crazy now to tell you here on this, happy podcast on a happy Monday, like, but it's amazing how vivid that still is to me 8 years later. And that fear, like, God, this is the end. But in a way, it's made me just really want to help others, and so we can all have the best life. Because back to your original point.
Catch new episodes of Mental Health Mondays every Monday morning at 7 a.m. Start your week off with a smile and some inspiration.